Welcome back to Central Colorado Ballistics. My name is Wally. Before Virginia was a state, it was a company. Before it was a state government, it was a royal colony. And before it was either of those, it was a military outpost trying to survive. So when we ask, how did firearm rights begin in Virginia? We are not starting with the Second Amendment. We are starting with survival, authority, and control. Virginia was not a U.S. territory in the way Colorado was. It predates the United States entirely. In 1606, King James I granted a charter to the Virginia Company of London. This was a joint stock corporation. Virginia began as a business venture. Jamestown was founded in 1607, not as a state, not as a democratic experiment, but as a commercial colony under corporate authority. The company governed, the crown supervised, and firearms were essential from day one. The colony faced starvation, disease, conflict with surrounding Powhatan tribes. Every able-bodied male was expected to be armed, not as a right, as a requirement. Virginia's early laws required men to own weapons. Militia statutes mandated muskets, powder, shot. In the early decades, these were typically matchlock muskets, slow to load, weather sensitive, but decisive in defense. Technology was limited. Expectation was not. Some statutes required every man to maintain what the law called a fixed gun, kept in working order with powder and shot ready. Failure to appear armed could result in fines. This was not optional civic virtue. It was enforced obligation. In 1624, the Crown dissolved the Virginia Company. Virginia became a royal colony. But the militia system remained. Local counties organized companies. Commanders were appointed. Musters were mandatory. Before there were modern police, there were militias. Before sheriffs carried state authority, they enforced crown authority, and forts came first. Jamestown itself was fortified. Later, frontier forts emerged as settlement pushed west. Defense and policing were not separate concepts. They were the same function. Now here is where the story sharpens. Not everyone could legally possess arms. As early as 1619, the First General Assembly restricted the sale of firearms to Native Americans. Regulation began at the colony's first legislative session. Virginia law disarmed enslaved Africans, free black residents in many periods, Native Americans under various statutes, those refusing loyalty oaths to the crown. The question was not weapon type, it was allegiance. Firearm control in colonial Virginia focused on perceived threats to authority. After Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, when frontier settlers rose against Governor Berkeley, the Crown became deeply wary of armed uprisings. That rebellion shaped policy. It demonstrated that an armed colonial population could turn inward. From that point forward, loyalty and control became central concerns. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, reshaped Virginia's military culture. Young officers like George Washington gained experience on the frontier. Militia weaknesses were exposed. Supply problems, training gaps, coordination failures. The war reinforced something critical. Virginia relied heavily on armed civilians, but civilian arms required structure. By the mid-18th century, the long rifle was becoming increasingly common on the frontier, prized by frontier settlers for range and accuracy in wooded terrain. The experience strengthened militia organization, but it also increased British oversight, and oversight bred resentment. In 1775, Royal Governor Lord Dunmore ordered the removal of gunpowder from the Williamsburg magazine. Colonists interpreted this as disarmament. Militia mobilized. Tension escalated. This event is often called the Gunpowder Incident. It foreshadowed Lexington and Concord. In 1776, Virginia adopted the Virginia Declaration of Rights, drafted primarily by George Mason. It declared, "A well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people trained to arms, is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state." That language predates the Second Amendment. Virginia helped shape it. Virginia became a state in 1776, not purchased, not organized as a federal territory. It transitioned from colony to independent state during the Revolution. But independence did not eliminate regulation. The state even operated the Virginia manufactory of arms, producing muskets, rifles, and pistols to supply its militia forces. Arms were not just privately owned, they were state-produced. Militia laws remained mandatory. Certain groups were still disarmed. Slave codes tightened. After slave revolts, restrictions increased. Following Nat Turner's Rebellion in 1831, Virginia enacted stricter controls on black firearm possession. Again, the pattern emerges. When authority feels threatened, control expands. The Civil War shattered Virginia. It became the primary battleground of the Confederacy. After 1865, Reconstruction governments and federal troops occupied the state. Freed men sought the right to bear arms for self-defense, but local authorities often resisted. Black codes attempted to restrict access. The 14th Amendment and federal enforcement reshaped the legal landscape. But enforcement varied. Control and autonomy remained in tension. Virginia was not a territory. It was not purchased. It was a colony born under corporate charter, then ruled by a king, then reborn through revolution. Its firearm history shows us something fundamental. Arms were required. Before, they were protected. Control focused on allegiance. Before, it was focused on hardware. War expanded authority. Rebellion triggered restriction. Fear justified oversight. Virginia did not invent the American gun debate, but it shaped its foundation. In the next episode, we move from colonial authority to federal territory, because when the frontier shifts west, the same questions follow. Who holds arms? Who decides? And who enforces? Freedom secured, rights defended.